Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the Call Center Contact Center podcast, where we try to give you some actionable insights into your overall operation, try to give you some actionable takeaways to make sure that your customer experience just improves. This is a podcast episode that I've been wanting to do for a little bit now since we've been starting up Auto. It's been, I think, frustrating for all of us. Not frustrating is not the right word, but just I think all of us are going through AI overload, right? I mean, I post a ton of stuff on AI. Everything you see on LinkedIn in the CX space is all about AI. So every couple episodes, I'm trying to kind of get back to my roots and talk about things that are, maybe they're AI related, but they're not solely just talking about, the different aspects of AI and large language models and chatbots and all that stuff. So as most of you guys know, we have a startup called Auto QA, which funny is an AI infused with large language models kind of startup that we've been able to fully automate contact center scoring. So I don't want to say fully take away QA because there's a huge process with QA, but the actual scoring of calls, we've been able to fully automate. And so I don't really want to talk about that today, as I've spoken about that a ton, but I want to talk to you guys about building out the best QA form. So even if you're not ready to automate your scoring, but you want to kind of maybe revamp the QA form that you have, or take another look at is what we're measuring, is it making sense? And I have my team and I we've just seen so many different I've seen so many QA forms, over the years from different clients for our BPO here at Expedia. But, over the last, 3 months, we've seen a ton of different forms from a ton of different companies, some really good, some some that don't have any, that we've had to start from scratch. So I wanted to talk you through kind of the process that I think we've been utilizing to develop kind of the best form for most organizations. Now, QA forms are very kind of proprietary to each individual customer segment, what channel you're in, right? There's a lot of different things when it comes to voice, email, chats, help desk tickets, right? QAing all that compared to, maybe just the voice call. So I think really this is for focusing on voice, focusing more on chat, right? These are the kind of the two probably main core channels that we've seen. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. But what does it take? What do you need to do? What are the sections that you have? What should be the actual questions that you should ask? And I think that there's a lot that goes into this. And again, from looking at hundreds and hundreds of QA forms through the years, and literally probably another 100 in the last month or two, this is kind of what the team and I, if we have to develop a new QA form for a customer, this is kind of what we would recommend. So if you're kind of looking, again, to revamp your QA form, I think this will be a cool episode for you. Again, I'm live on X, Twitter. I'm live on LinkedIn. If you guys have any questions as we're going through, this is kind of breakfast with Tom as I'm recording this at like 8:45 or 8:55 here in the morning on the East Coast. Just had some time, so I thought, this would be good to kind of talk through. All right, so let's kind of get into this. So the first thing is what is the goal of what you want the end outcome to be? And this doesn't have to be a singular goal. And to be honest, it probably shouldn't be, right? But what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on your agent performance? You want to focus on compliance issues? You want to get insights from your calls? These are all things that, have kind of opened up our mind a lot to what you can get from a QA form that maybe we don't think about. And I think compliance and agent performance kind of go hand in hand. But the one thing that I've really found to be powerful with, using Auto, and still you could use this with your kind of human scoring team, is why are we not asking insights, even if it's with a human on the form, to start to kind of collect data, right? And I get some of us have these high-end analytics tools that supposedly are doing that for us, but still, wouldn't it be cool if even if you're doing, let's say you have a QA agent that's doing, say, I don't know, let's just say 50 forms a week, right? And so again, that's 200. And let's say you have a staff of 3, right? That's 600 pieces of data, segments that you could be getting insights and asking questions about what's happening on calls as well. So you can almost use your humans, right, as an analytic tool. And once you get to a certain amount, it becomes statistically valid, right? Depending on the time period and how many of these you're going to do. So I want to talk more about that later on, but I think that that's something that's really opened my mind and changed about what a QA form can be and what it should be. And even if it's just a small, kind of throwaway section that you have at the end, I think can add a ton of value, and we never really think about it. But as we go to actually looking at agent behaviors, here's kind of the core sections. I'm a huge believer that less is more. When I see huge QA forms, a lot of the questions are kind of redundant, right? They're asking the same thing in different angles. And it can be kind of confusing, I think, for AI when we're doing it. It can be confusing with a human to kind of really get to the core. And a lot of times this happens because a lot of people have an insight into the QA form, whether that's different people in your organization or more. What normally happens is, as somebody takes over QA or takes as a call center manager, they add their 2 cents to the form. And it's kind of like an IVR, right? You get this monstrosity form in. So, I think it is good every once in a while, every couple of years, to kind of like almost rip it down to its core and start to build it back up. And when you do that, I think that this is kind of how it should look, right? We're always going to have, and again, a lot of this isn't rocket science. But I think that there are some insights maybe that are like, oh, that makes sense, right? Hopefully that just gets you to kind of think that way. So number one is kind of the opening and the verification, right? So normally that's 2 to 3 questions. And I think your opening should be basically, was the agent ready for the call, right? The customer's not saying, hello, hi, hello, right? We're not doing that. Was their tone where you need it to be? It's not like, thank you for calling XYZ. How can I help you? My name's Tom, right? Obviously, we want their tone to be I'm not saying we got to be, gung ho every single call, but it's got to be like, this customer does sound important to us. I think that those are really important, right? So your tone right at the beginning, making sure that they're ready for the call, and then any type of verification that you need for that customer, right? Whether that is you have to verify their name, a member ID, a date of birth, those kind of things. If you have to read back, if you want the information read back to the customer, all of that stuff will kind of play into 2 or 3 questions. I think is really all you need there to really kind of get through verifying the customer and then making sure that we're starting the call off on a proper tone. I think that's a really important thing to score. And then the next thing that I think we'd look at is kind of having an etiquette, a phone etiquette kind of section. And with these, I kind of have 5 main questions that we like to ask that I think cover the vast majority of, what a customer kind of would want, and kind of just the behavior of the agent. So number 1 is, did they show any type of empathy, right? Is it just a blatant, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, right? Or do they actually take the time to like listen to the customer and legitimately show empathy? Again, I know this is not an AI episode, but I think that's one of the main misconceptions, and one of the things that we've had to work on the most. Human beings are really good when they show genuine empathy. They're good at connecting with another human. And secondly, the scoring from a QA standpoint, it stands right out, right? Because the QA person can really tell that empathy. I struggle, right? On a lot of your QA forms, we're scoring what the agent said, not how they said it. And I think that's a huge drawback, because it's just been kind of lazy for everybody and it's easy. So again, we will score, and we see this scored when we're calibrating calls and we're listening to how humans have scored this. If an agent does say, and I know you guys have heard me say this, but I'm really sorry to hear that, right? Gives that fake empathy. They're just checking the box. And normally on a lot of QA forms, that's fine. I think you should go deeper than that. Again, you guys have heard me talk about it on our auto platform. That's one of my favorite prompts, right? Because we're not looking for keywords like analytics. We are looking for anywhere in the transcript where the customer had a pain point. They had some type of stress level that went up. They had an issue with a product. And did the agent actually say something that either raised the sentiment of the interaction, made the customer laugh, made the outcome of that small 10-second interaction after the agent talked, did it make the call a little bit better? And humans can pick that up, but I think it's really difficult to do over time. But that's something that AI, if you prompt for it, it can do a really good job with that too. So empathy and I think true empathy are really important. Call control is another question that I would always ask that I think is very important. You know, the best contact center agents are taking you down a journey, right? Where, you know, the customer always has the opportunity to kind of go right or left, right? But that agent knows where that customer needs to be at the end and can control that. And I think that that's a really important piece. So are they showing really good call control without kind of being demanding of, like, you know, and being assertive? But, you know, the really good customer service agents can do that. The third is just kind of the blanket, you know, did they use proper verbiage, tone, professionalism? And this is different for everybody because I think this is a culture question, right? So if you're at a bank, you have to be prim and proper, right? Yes, sir. No, sir. You know, those kind of words. But if you're working for maybe a skateboard shop, it's, what's up, man? Like, oh, dude, listen, right? Like, did the agent match the culture of not only the agent but your brand as well? I think that's really important. The fourth question is, did they actively listen? I think that this is really important for contact center agents, and it can be really hard, especially when you're taking call after call after call after call. And maybe it's the same exact issue that you've heard like 13 times in a row. But that customer doesn't know that. So, you know, that's a really important question, I think, to ask. You know, are they actively listening? Are they kind of not talking over the customer because they're kind of getting bored? Are they just jumping to conclusions, right? Did the customer say something earlier and the agent just totally forgot about it, right? And that's so annoying to a customer. So I think that that's a really important question. And then the last thing with etiquette is right, did they follow the proper hold procedures? Did they follow your kind of dead air policies? I have seen, for the most part, on hold procedures that it's between 1 minute and 2 minutes, right? With halfway through coming back to the customer and kind of giving them a, hey, I'm sorry, I'm just going to be a couple more minutes. Is that okay? That kind of thing. So it's, you know, asking for proper hold if they can put the customer on hold, which I think is still the right thing to do. Making sure that we're not, you know, having 5 to 10 minutes. And if we do, that we've talked to the customer a couple times, that's going to ruin the call anyway. But I mean, again, trying to hold it to that minute to 2 minutes and fit 30 seconds through, a minute through, making sure that we're getting back to the customer. And then also just that there's not a lot of dead air. Maybe that's its own question too. Sometimes, a lot of times we see them just kind of jammed together, right? But, you know, if the agent is working on a screen and there's like that 30 seconds of all you hear is maybe typing or, right? And again, that can be difficult. Really good customer service agents are good at it. The really bad ones make it seem fake. Like, how's your day today, sir? Like, right. But still, I think that's still better than having total dead air. All right. So we kind of have an opening. We kind of have that etiquette, which is the core of kind of, I think, everybody's QA form. And then kind of the third section is like, what is proprietary to you, right? Are these sales calls? Are these retention calls? Are these tech support calls where we got to find maybe a root cause or some type of troubleshooting, or, you know, maybe it's an insurance call where we have to follow certain SOPs and make sure that we're giving proper information out, right? So again, for sales calls, and this will be a little bit more general because there's so much you could do here, but I think for the core questions, right, looking for, I'm a huge on the sales aspect. There's two things for me that I think are vitally important. Number one is that we ask proper kind of open-ended probing questions, right? To kind of get to the heart of maybe what this customer wants, right? We're not asking yes or no's. I think that's important. And then, you know, some people love this, some people hate this, but I think for most cross-sell, upsell, customers calling in to, you know, sign up for a subscription, having that assumptive language, I think it's proven. I mean, I've seen it in every single program we've ever done. The agents who are using assumptive language in their sales process, right? They have a much higher conversion percentage. So, it's like a customer saying, yeah, so how much is this again? And well, ma'am, this is it's 14.95 a month. If you'd like to, sign up for a family plan, it's only $56 for the year. So, let's get you signed up here. Do you have any kids, or would you like the family plan? Or you know what? I did hear that you said that earlier, that you do live alone. So let's sign you up for this 14.95 plan. I have your name as, and you kind of go into it. Right. So, and again, we can argue about that. I think that that's kind of a good thing, from a sales aspect. And the third kind on that sales is kind of, did they rebuttal, right? Using benefits, right? We don't want to ever, and again, this goes into more salesy stuff, but you know, if there's like a 30-day free trial, right? You don't want to rebuttal off of that, right? Rebuttaling off of low commitment, right, normally leads to higher drop-offs, as we go, a couple months in. So the customer is going to come back and be like, dude, like, that's great, you got these sales, but they were on our books for 2 months. So I think, rebuttaling with the benefits, making sure that we're talking positive about the product. And then if there's any retention, right, for a cancel call, right, I think, that kind of plays into that as well. Did they actually try to retain the customer? Did they try to sell it off benefits? Blah, blah, blah. So all those things that from a sales aspect that are important to you, I think can go in there. If this is more of a tech support, were you able to show understanding of the issue? Were you able to verbalize the problem? Were you able to give a quick summary back to the customer so that they can say, because a lot of times, and I've learned this in tech support, the customer doesn't really understand what's happening and doesn't have maybe the lingo to read to understand it. So it's up to the customer service agent then to kind of speak through what those issues could be, and then get a kind of a verbalization, I think that's a word, to the customer that, yes, this is what's going on. And then, did they give relevant troubleshoot, like all those kind of things for troubleshooting? And then again, for maybe if you're an insurance company and you have certain, SOPs, right? Are you giving the proper information? Right? I think that that's a really important, obviously really important question for anything, but you're looking more at those types of things. Did you transfer when you were supposed to? Did you give the proper information for this situation? Those are kind of the proprietary things to your business that I think need to be part of kind of that third section. And then the fourth is the closing, right? And there can be a couple things in the closing. Number one, a lot of times we see customers they want to make sure that the agent did not transfer inappropriately to another department. So we may have that in the closing. I think offering additional assistance is just a cool, nice thing to do at the end. Is there anything else that I can help you with, instead of just ending the call? I think that, again, for those of you who don't like longer handle times, you might not like that, but I think, overall that's the best way to kind of end the call. And then, having a proper closing, whatever that is for you guys, if it's a branded closing or if it's just, hey, thank you, I, like to speak to you again, whatever that is. I think that's important. Your openings and your closings are really important from a branding standpoint to make sure that it's almost like you're going to get the same kind of experience every time. And I think those are pretty important things to make sure that you're scripted to a certain extent with your agents. And then here's the last thing, right? So normally that's kind of where we would end, right? I think that having an analytics section, a small section of maybe 3 or 4 questions, right? Did the customer cancel? Was it too expensive? If you have a retention line, if there is, maybe a marketing wants to get in, like, did they say anything about the product design? Did they say anything about an advertisement we had on Facebook, like whatever? Like asking all these things that we normally ask agents through a disposition, or we just go talk to them about in a focus group. Start to ask those questions, right? The analytics is really good at it. Auto QA is amazing at it. Your human being, people can do that as well when they hear things, right? To just yes or no some certain things that you can start to really correlate questions. I get the question a lot on weighting questions and weighting sections. And I kind of go back and forth on it. I think overall you are fine if you are on a 5-point scale. I don't think you have to make it complicated, right? Everybody wants to make it more complicated than I think it is. One out of one, a 0 or a 5. It's a yes or no. It's a binary question, and you can really benchmark, I think, a lot better that way. When you start to weigh sections and you weigh questions as more important, and again, there's some really good use cases for that, especially I think in financial services from disclosures and those kind of things. I think that's important, but I think you can get confused, when you see different scores based on different sections of weighting. So again, I'm just a big 0 out of 5, whole way through kind of thing. I think that that gives you kind of the easiest way. Now, I would, instead of weighing calls and weighing sections, I would prefer you to do auto fails, right? So again, if a specific disclosure wasn't read, and that would be kind of in your third, that sales kind of area. Those type of things, if they didn't verify appropriately, and they get a 0 for the call, or that section then gets a full 0, which then makes them, the highest they can get is a 50, which still is an auto fail, whatever that is. I would prefer to do that than to, just to kind of go through and weigh every single section. But auto fails, I think, are important. And the other thing that auto fails do is they pop up your QA and your supervisor right away too, that there was something that happened on this call that wasn't good, right? It's not just that they got a 78 on it, but it was a 30, right? And I think, again, more importantly than that, it just kind of raises the eyebrows really fast so that we can go correct issues a little bit quicker. So yeah, that's kind of my take, guys. Again, I don't know if that's real rocket science. I know I've done this before. There's a couple other podcasts that I have out there that were done a couple years ago on kind of creating forms. And, again, I would love to have everybody use an auto QA or use our auto QA, but you don't have to. Right? There's no reason that you can't set up a form that I just talked about on Excel, on a Google Sheet, or even a Google form, and ask questions as you kind of go through that form. It doesn't have to be crazy. Again, there's better ways, right? Especially in 2024. But if you're a smaller contact center, you're 10 seats, you're 20 seats, maybe you don't have anything set up. You could do this today, right? And kind of set up what you think is important and then start tweaking from there. And it also gives you then a way to train and educate agents, right? Because now you're having them do specific things. When you don't have that, I think it can be very hard, and agents can go off the rails a little bit. Maybe that's good for certain instances, but I think overall, from a call control standpoint, from a call flow standpoint, again, call flow is kind of another question that you could ask that kind of goes with call control. But those are kind of the I guess the core things that we have seen to have a really solid QA form, right, for your agents that is not overbearing, that's not going to frustrate them, that's not going to have your QA team take forever to kind of score. It gets to the point of compliance, it gets to the point of agent performance, and then I think start to think through about kind of how you can get insights from your QA team as well. I think that's a really important piece that we don't really think about. So again, if there's no questions, I know this was early on LinkedIn. It's kind of breakfast with Tom here at 9:15 now. It's a 25-minute episode. So if there's no other questions, guys, I hope that this gives you some value. If there's any of you that have any questions on QA, we'd love to, talk to you about a totally free, no cost whatsoever setup for our auto QA platform. We set up your forms, we set up your full QA stack, give you a full proof of concept for absolutely no cost. Check us out at autoqa.com if that's something you're interested in. Also, as you guys know, we have Expedia. We're a 500-600 seat outsourcer here in the States too, that we'd love to talk to some of you guys about as well. But if there's no other questions, thanks, guys. I hope this adds some value, and I'll talk to you next week.